Okay, let's talk about rapper Azealia Banks, talented young artist from New York. Rachel, first of all, can you sum up what happened this past week?
Sure. So she hit about 4 or 5 years ago, and super provocative, super talented. Also, gets into a lot of Twitter fights with people, other women in the industry, other rappers, and has been in situations where she's used homophobic slurs against people. Most recently, she went off on Twitter about Zayn Malik, formerly of One Direction, accusing him of stealing her material and using racial slurs against him. He's of Pakistani descent, and also talking about him being Muslim as well. People exploded. Zayn Malik has a huge following, and she has since been kicked off of Twitter, which is takes some doing given the kind of stuff that gets said on Twitter. Mm-hmm. So this is where things are at, and she's apologized. Her behavior has been quite erratic and quite troubling, and she's had this promising career that just sort of keeps getting jettisoned by the behavior.
Max, as Rachel said, Twitter suspended Azalea's account. Yeah. Many have argued that she didn't deserve that, regardless of what she said or did. What do you think?
Well, I mean, Bette Miller sums it up. It's like, Azealia Banks is banned from Twitter for homophobic and racist remarks, but Donald Trump's still on there. Right. So there's that side of it that I totally get. There's also the side of it that I feel as though, with her Instagram post about, Black mental health and white supremacy, like there's a lot of conversations there, and there's a lot of things that we could kind of do to kind of figure out exactly where she's coming from as a person. But I think a lot of what sort of frustrates me is these conversations I have with people where they try to make it just about white supremacy. No, don't get me wrong. As a person of color, like white supremacy, cultural oppression, cultural smudging of things that are, in the Black culture that white people take and appropriate. Like I get all that stuff, and I get how that could sort of stunt her growth as an artist. But we're basically at a point where like Azealia is basically like, oh, I just did a crazy thing, white supremacy. I didn't get a latte this morning, white supremacy. Like it's bordering. It's bordering. It's at a point now where I want to be here for her. And as a person of color, a Black woman that talented, I'm going to be on the front lines. I'm going to support her. I'm going to try to create a bigger dialogue around these things that could be stunting her growth. But there's certain things that literally have nothing to do with white people and have nothing to do with the beefs that she gets into. Like when you're beefing with Nicki Minaj, that has nothing to do with white supremacy. When you're beefing with K. Michelle, which is an R&B singer signed to Atlantic Records, they're supposed to do a joint tour together, and then the tour didn't happen, and then she just started going off on her on Twitter. Like that has nothing to do with white supremacy. I get the issues that we as Black people, as Black entertainers suffer from. I get that, a major label could have easily just been like, oh, we're now going to take this white rapper and name her Iggy Azalea on purpose to kind of, be that roadblock between her success and Iggy's success. Like there's all a bunch of factors and a bunch of theories, but what it all comes down to is that to some degree, as a person of color, you have to own, some of the crazy things that you do. Like, again, white supremacy is real, and it's not going away, but at the same time we have...
You feel like it's important to separate these two things. There's personal responsibility,
Yeah,
and then there's a deeper issues there, and it has started kind of a conversation about where her anger and rage is coming from.
Yeah.
Stephen, what do you read into her behavior online?
Well, I mean, the thing I find fascinating kind of goes back to what we were talking about Drake. Like, is he a musician or is he a social media presence or whatever, right? Like, if that anger was put into music, it would have been fine, right? Yeah. Like Kanye West said the line about Taylor Swift, like, which was an awful, like if somebody said it to you on the street, you'd be like, can we please call the police, right? But he gets forgiven because it's in music and it's in art. But then her Twitter profile is taken as her real self. And because of that, we can't tolerate it. And that's I think what's interesting, right? Because it's like anger is a creative force, and it always has been. Mm-hmm. And Black anger in particular, of course, has produced amazing works of art over 150 years, right? But like, it's the nature of the social media phenomenon that channels it, that just makes it seem, as you said, this is just rudeness.
Right.
This is
well,
just like
and I also,
What do you think? Yeah,
yeah,
Rachel,
I mean,
her anger is about.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is, a very, legitimate anger about what she's talking about, but what it means to be a young Black woman in an industry that can treat young Black women like garbage and exploit them for their talent and not reward them and not give them power. I also think that, there is a lot of she's being sort of condemned, but I also think that people are kind of getting off on this young Black woman being a bit unhinged too, right? Like I think that becomes a bit of a thing, and she gets attention for it. And I think that there's racism at work in that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, one thing you have to understand is that, in a situation like Azealia Banks, where mental health is clearly playing some sort of factor, white media doesn't really care about that. It's just like, oh, here's a Black girl going off, we're gonna spin it. You know what I mean? But I think with me being, kind of on the fence about how I feel about Azealia Banks, one thing I want to see her start doing is like, don't feed into it, because that's the thing. Again, we could go into like these long, nuanced conversations about Black mental health and how white supremacy plays into like her career not going the way it's supposed to go. But at the same time, if I'm gonna go and have this huge conversation and really, really go on the defense for Azealia, only for her to then go and make fun of a 14-year-old Disney star on Twitter, like it just like it's kind of one of those things. Like it's that fine line.
And again, I think it's just really weird to me that she's been thrown off Twitter, and it's impossible to get guys who threaten to like rape and kill women.
Well,
off Twitter.
ISIS is still on Twitter.
Exactly.
Right,
There might be a double standard going on there. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up here. Thank you guys so much.